For most of human history, mankind lived at the mercy of an enemy that remained entirely hidden. Food spoiled, wounds festered, and sudden plagues wiped out entire towns without a single warning. Desperate for answers, the brightest minds of the time blamed bad air, misaligned bodily humors, or even divine wrath for these catastrophes. The reality was, we were covered in, surrounded by, and breathing in a bustling microscopic universe. Because this microbial realm was hidden from the naked eye, humanity remained defenseless. That remained true until one man decided to look closer. Growing up in Dole, France, Louis Pasteur was categorized as a strictly average student, but he possessed a rare advantage, an obsessive artist's eye for microscopic detail. In 1848, a mystery regarding tartaric acid, a chemical found in fermenting wine, was baffling European chemists. Look at this diagram. You have two chemical compounds with the exact same ingredients. But when you shine polarized light through them, the one on the left bends the light upward, while the one on the right lets it pass straight through. Pasteur peered at the acid through his microscope. Because of his background in art, he noticed the right-hand compound was actually a mixture of two differently shaped, asymmetric crystals that physically mirrored each other. Using tweezers and a needle, he painstakingly separated these tiny left-handed and right-handed shapes. When he isolated them, one bent light left, the other bent it right. Mixed together, they canceled each other out. Pasteur had discovered that this physical asymmetry was exclusive to chemicals produced by living organisms. While laboratory reactions produced balanced mixtures that left light unchanged, biological processes chose a single direction. He had found a physical property that definitively separated the living world from the mineral one. A few years later, an industrialist in the town of Lille handed Pasteur a crisis. Vats of fermenting beet juice used to produce alcohol were turning thick, sour, and slimy, ruining the local economy. The scientific consensus of the era held that fermentation was a passive chemical process of death, where complex substances simply broke down on their own. Pasteur took samples back to his lab. In this microscopic view of the healthy beet juice, you can see exactly what he saw: plump, round yeast cells actively budding and multiplying. Now look at what he found in the soured vats. The healthy yeast was completely gone. In its place, a swarm of microscopic, vibrating rod-shaped bacteria had taken over. Pasteur had identified the active driver of decay. This proved that microscopic life governed the transformation of organic matter, rendering the old theories of passive chemical breakdown obsolete. Proving that invisible life caused decay put Pasteur at war with a centuries-old belief: spontaneous generation. For millennia, it was assumed that life could magically spring forth from dead matter, that a vital force in the air created maggots on meat or clouded a bowl of broth. Pasteur needed undeniable proof that life only comes from existing life. This schematic illustrates the elegant solution he designed, the Swan-Neck flask. He filled it with nutrient broth and boiled it, leaving the S-shaped glass curve open to the air. The steep curve allowed oxygen in, but successfully trapped the floating microbes and dust at the bottom of the glass neck. The broth remained totally clear for years. To deliver the final blow to his critics, Pasteur simply snapped the neck off a flask. Without the protective curve, dust fell straight in. Within days, the broth clouded with microscopic life. The demonstration permanently ended the spontaneous generation myth. It proved that the air we breathe carries invisible biological passengers. A darker implication began to form in Pasteur's mind. If these invisible creatures could infect a vat of wine and alter its chemistry, they could likely infect a human being. Before tackling human disease, he applied his theories to save the French silkworm industry from parasitic ruin and invented pasteurization to protect the global food supply. By the late 1870s, he was focused on chicken cholera. Right before a summer vacation, his assistant accidentally left a batch of lethal bacterial cultures sitting out on a lab bench for a month before injecting them into a flock. The chickens got mildly sick and recovered. When Pasteur injected them again with a fresh, lethal dose, they remained healthy. As we can see in this animation, exposure to oxygen and time had physically weakened the bacterial structure. When introduced to the host, it taught the animal's body how to build a defense against the deadly version. He called these mixtures vaccines. The ultimate test happened in a field at Pouilly-le-Fort. Pasteur vaccinated 25 sheep against anthrax and then injected 50 animals with a lethal dose of anthrax. 2 days later, all 25 unvaccinated sheep were staggering or dead. The 25 vaccinated sheep were grazing peacefully. The era of modern immunology had begun. Humanity could now intentionally engineer a host's internal defenses to survive a lethal pathogen. Pasteur's final challenge was a disease that carried a unique psychological terror: rabies. A bite from an infected dog meant a slow, fatal descent into paralysis. Look at this perspective through a 19th century microscope lens. When Pasteur tried to find the pathogen, he saw absolutely nothing. The rabies virus was so small, completely invisible to the optical technology of his day. Operating entirely in the dark, he used the scientific method to track and weaken the invisible agent through the spinal cords of rabbits. He had a vaccine, but he had never tested it on humans. That changed when a 9-year-old boy, Joseph Meister, arrived after being savagely mauled by a rabbit dog. Facing a guaranteed death for the boy, Pasteur took a massive moral and legal risk, beginning a 14-day treatment of injections. The boy survived without developing a single symptom. Pasteur had defeated a deadly pathogen he couldn't even see, relying entirely on deductive logic. The success triggered a wave of global support, transforming the former art student from Dole into the founder of the first international network dedicated to studying infectious disease. The practical instructions he left behind are still with us. He taught humanity to wash our hands, to sterilize medical instruments, and to train our immune systems. For thousands of years, mankind lived on a battlefield against an unseen enemy. Thanks to relentless curiosity, we are no longer casualties of the microscopic world. We're its master.